Good morning, and thank you so much for joining this Cosmos Campfire, um, where I've allowed a little bit of extra time for everyone to join in. So please feel free to put any questions or concerns in the chat. And we also have a Q&A box if you want to ask specific questions. And then after the agenda today, we will open up for open office hour questions. Okay, my name is Lexi Brunn. I am a senior customer success rep. I will most likely handle the trainings or support escalations if you need additional support. I've been with Aprika for about 3 years and in the ecosystem with Salesforce for a little over 4 years now. On our agenda today, we will be doing a demo and diving into the mission control feature that helps you manage overtime rates on each project. So if you have questions, again, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A box. I'll check both of them throughout the demo here. Okay. So our initial objectives in this Cosmo Campfire is to first discover the difference between an overtime card and an overtime rate, how to create overtime cards, and then creating and managing overtime rates, as well as managing the overtime on your project records. And then in addition to that, we'll also want to see how to log time as overtime. Okay, so just starting out with the overtime rate, this is a fixed rate of pay for a time spent working in addition to one's normal working hours. So in addition to what they might already be contributing to the project or their project rates. And then our overtime card is a collection of different overtime rates set for a group of resources that are assigned to a specific project. So you might have different rates for your customer service team or your field service team. It might be specific to the kind of project that is being worked and so forth. So this is going to have a collection of rates in just one overtime card. And this will allow you to have multiple rates on your project, okay? So let's get into the demo. First, I will start at the mission control console, and I'm just going to clone a service project template that I have. And in this initial project, I'm going to show you how to set up just one overtime rate on your project record. So once we get our project cloned here, in our project detail, we're going to say that overtime billable is allowed, and this is going to charge the customer the overtime that is being charged or that is being applied for our resources. So we're going to charge the customer for overtime, and then our overtime cost is going to pay our resources the overtime. Okay, so this is to pay out the overtime and track those costs as well. And pretty simple here. You just enter in the overtime ratio and for the billable and the cost rates. Okay, so I'm going to keep everything else the same and go ahead and close this project. And what we'll do here is log the time. All right, so now that we have our project established, I'm going to go ahead and for Colin and log an overtime time log for the design wireframes action. So my project is already populated here. I'm going to put that for the design wireframes. And we are going to log 1 hour of overtime. So you'll need to make sure for a time log to have the rate adjustment applied to mark overtime as true, enter in your time log notes, and so on. Okay, so we'll take a look at this time log in just a second here. All right. So on our time log that we've just created, I actually created it for the wrong project member. I forgot to update that. Let's see. Edit here. So this is actually supposed to be for Colin. And I do have approval set up on this record here. So let's go ahead and open this time log and view the details here. Okay, so because this is in pending status, it's not going to show me the values until the time log is marked approved. So there's two ways that I can get around this. I can remove approval being required, which is what I'm going to do. So to just make this a little bit easier. And let's start over here. So again, let's log time. And this time I'm going to correct this and log it for Colin on the design wireframes for 1 hour and apply that overtime. All right. Let's refresh our screen here. All right. So for our 1 hour that has been completed, we can see that the hours completed value has been updated. And the original hours completed value, cost value has been updated with the overtime rate. Okay, and we'll go into further detail when we review multiple overtime rates, adding that to your project. So this will be the standard weight in your project detail. Now, before we apply multiple overtime rates, let's go ahead and create an overtime card. So that's going to be those collection of overtime rates on our project. And we'll just go to the overtime card object to do so. Can't type this morning. All right, and we're going to create a new overtime card. So this is going to be for my field service team. We're going to save. And to create my rates on my overtime card, I'll actually need to go to my related list. Now, once this overtime card is populated on different projects, I'll also be able to see all of the projects where this overtime card is being used. So let's go ahead and put our rates in. So I may have a rate for weekend overtime. And that might be my standard 1.5. So I will be charging the customer the full amount for the overtime paid to the resource. We're going to hit save and new. We might have our standard overtime 1.5 and 1.5. And then you also have the ability to charge the customer less than what you are paying your resource. So I could say, even though this is standard overtime, I may be paying my resources the standard 1.5 ratio, so time and a half, but I might only be charging the customer 1.25 of that cost and incurring the additional cost to the company. Okay, so that's another example there. I could also have holiday or public holiday overtime. And say we're getting a little fancy here and charging double pay for the resource to work those additional hours. So charging the customer and then charging ourselves the 2-point overtime rate here. And then I might even have evening overtime. So outside of business hours, we're going to give them a whopping 3 times their pay. Okay. So now that we have our rates, we have our overtime card, what I'm going to do is go back to this project. I could create a new project, but I'm just going to edit here from the project detail and navigate to the overtime section. And the first thing I'll need to do is add the overtime fields to my page layout. So there's 2 additional fields that have been added to support this feature. The first field is use multiple overtime rates. So when we come get this up here, and this is something that your administrator will need to do if this is a feature that you would like to use. So this is some initial setup here. So you'll need to add the use multiple overtime rates field to your page layout. I'm going to put this right next to my overtime billable and cost. And then we'll also need to specify the overtime card. Okay. All right, so now that we've added these fields to the page layout, we're going to go in here and refresh our project. And go ahead and edit. All right, so now that we already established that we're allowing overtime, billable, and costs, we'll also need to say that we're using multiple overtime rates and specify our field service card. Okay, so these rates here will no longer be used unless there is no overtime card specified on the time log. So we'll get into logging that time now. Okay. All right, so now that those rates have been established on my project, what I'm going to do is jump over to my timesheet. And I'm going to switch to Colin, who is actually assigned to the actions on this project. All right, so for our service project, he's going to log 1 hour for Thursday. We're going to double click this cell, add in our notes, but now we're going to add that this time log that we're entering for 1 hour is going to be an overtime time log. And the system is going through, it checks the project and shows that there is multiple overtime rates available. So I need to come in and specify which rate I am applying. So this one I was working after hours. This would be an overtime rate for the evening. And once I specify those hours, I will hit save. I'm going to save my timesheet here. Okay. And now I'm going to go in and create another one just for another time overtime rate type. So let's double click here. We're going to add a new time log. So this is giving me a new separate time log. Of course, add in your notes and then let's go ahead and select the overtime rate that you're going to apply here. So I'm going to use standard. All right. So I'm going to save that and go ahead and submit my time, save it. Since approval is not required on the project any longer, I will not need to submit it, which will send it to the approval person. What I'm actually going to do is just save it and it should be automatically approved. So let's go ahead and navigate to those time logs. So to do that quickly, I'm going to go directly to the action and view the time from the related list. And let's take a look at those hours. All right. Okay, so this is going to be the time log that has been assigned evening overtime. And we can see how much more the hours completed value billable is for just the 1 hour. And that is because I've put in that this role is specifically supposed to have 3 times their pay when they are working evening hours. So this will be 3 times the rate established for my role record. Now, the base rate that we are using for the time log will depend on the project financials. So if you have the rates established on your role records, you'll want to make sure that your project is set to pull rates from your role record. Or if you have that there are specific skills that the rate is supposed to pull from, then that will determine where the rate is specified in the skill assignment. Here I have my project billing rate set to standard, which means 150 for the billable hourly rate and 100 for the cost hourly rate. So we can see again on that time log that this is 3 times 150 for the billable and 3 times 100 for the hourly rate. And then let's go ahead and check out our last time log. And this one is going to be for the time and a half. So we can see time and a half of the 150 and time and a half for our just $100 per hour cost rate. Okay. So that will be how you specify your overtime. I see we only have one visitor right now. If you have any questions regarding overtime, please feel free to put them in the chat or question and answer box. If you have questions related to other subject matter in mission control, I can also answer those questions over the call today. And if there's a step that you missed, I can also go back to that as well. Don't currently have any questions coming in yet. This topic is pretty straightforward, pretty easy here. So if there is any questions that you have on different features within mission control, I can also review those questions as well. All right. Still don't have any questions coming in. Let me know if you would like for me to demonstrate anything regarding overtime again as well. All right, please feel free to get in touch if you have any support requests that can be sent to support@aprika.com, or a ticket can be submitted from our website. There are a few links to some training or knowledge materials and the learning portal. I also recommend that you join our chatter group in trailhead.salesforce.com. Our community group, we will post updates about different bug fixes, any changes that are made within the application. You can also reach out to us for questions, posted in an open forum. And then our next session for next month will be regarding skill development planning. All right, so thank you so much for joining into this session, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.